Praise the Lord, everybody. I said, praise the Lord, everybody. All right, that one was better. Good morning. My name is Lynette Trawick, and I am the founder of a nonprofit that started here in Philadelphia called IMU Incorporated. IMU serves women who are living with HIV, mostly between the ages of 25 and 45 years old. I do a lot of work around peer support. I do different trainings all over the country. I do different speaking engagements, whether they're in churches, schools, different community events, just a lot of different things. So I've been doing this work, I'd say, since about 2012. My organization began in 2017, and I absolutely love it. IMU was started from a very organic place where I was actually diagnosed with HIV myself 13 years ago. Unfortunately, I was in an abusive relationship where the individual I was in a relationship with was abusing me in every sense of the word. So he was verbally abusive, he was physically abusive, he was spiritually abusive, he was financially abusive. Literally every sense of the word abuse I endured. He was not monogamous. He brought home several STDs and then finally HIV. So I have, personal experience, unfortunately, when it comes to HIV. However, I also have the experience of seeing what God can do if you just allow him to work through your life. He was able to turn something that looked horrible into something so beautiful. So I'm so glad that I was invited to speak to you all, and we're just going to kind of jump right on into it. So one of the activities that my team actually used to do when we did speaking engagements or when we conduct workshops, one of the activities we like to do, we usually ask people, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the letters HIV? And this is prior to us sharing our story or me sharing that I'm living with HIV. So we'll ask that question, and almost always, one of the first words that come to their mind is death or dirty or nasty. Some of the other words that come to their mind, they'll say sick, they'll say medicine, they'll say lonely and isolation, promiscuous, drug use, things like that, pretty much everything that's negative. So unfortunately, prior to being diagnosed with HIV, that was also my thoughts. I thought HIV was supposed to look dirty. I thought, people who live with HIV to me look like how they portrayed it in movies, skinny and taking a bunch of medicine and just on a deathbed. But I'm so glad, again, that I allowed God to do what he was going to do in my life when it came to HIV. So one of the most important things that we can do, I feel, when it comes to HIV, especially on the side of prevention, which is one of the most important topics that's not talked about enough, preventing HIV. So just to give you a couple of numbers that I feel are very important and very relevant to today's conversation. First, in 2019, there were 35,000 new transmissions. Thankfully, that was down from 2015's number of 38,000, but that's still not good enough. 25 to 34-year-olds made up 30.1% of new transmissions. And then 35 to 44-year-olds made up 16.5% of new transmissions. Out of all of the transmissions, Black and African Americans made up 42.1%. And then Hispanic and Latinos followed up. They were second ranking. So what is it that we need to be doing to stop these transmissions? What is it that we need to be doing to eliminate these transmissions, to stop these numbers from even being a case? So one of the most important things I will always say is knowing our worth. Why is it that we put ourselves in these situations where we contract HIV? What is it that we're doing where we're contracting HIV? Again, my situation, I was in a relationship. That's a lot of the stories that I hear these days from a lot of people that I come in contact with. They were in a relationship. They were having sex without a condom, different things like that. Why do we subject ourselves to that? Well, I can tell you from personal experience, it was because I did not know my worth. I did not know my purpose. I did not know that God called me to be greater than what I was subjecting myself to. So that's number one. I feel that as a church, We need to do a better job at just affirming people as people, helping them to understand that they have a purpose that's greater than whatever it is that they might think it is when originally coming into the church building. Because as we know, the church isn't just a building. We have to start establishing that just outside of these walls that we're sitting in today. So that's number one, helping us to understand our worth, helping us to understand and see that our purpose is just so much greater and we're called to just so much higher than what we thought we were called to. That by itself will help us to not be in situations where we're in any kind of danger. Had I known my worth, had I known that I was a diamond, had I known that I was one of God's treasures, I would not have stayed in that relationship. Had someone else known that they were one of God's treasures, they would not be using drugs or injectable drugs. It's just so many different situations where just knowing our worth would kind of eliminate a lot of those things. And the intersections between people, that's another important topic to discuss. So a lot of times we don't think about where people come from affecting their adult behavior. If I look at myself, I'm a Black woman. First of all, that's two things. I'm Black, I'm a woman. I grew up in the inner city. I grew up in poverty. I grew up in a single parent home. All of those things, none of those things were really talked about with me growing up. None of those things were looked at. None of those things, I don't believe that people would think that those things would lead to HIV until HIV came to be a topic. So one of my friends, she always says that HIV is a symptom of a lot of other things that was going on. So because of all of those other intersections that I mentioned, HIV came to be. So those are the things that we need to make sure that we're discussing more in the church. Talk to the youth. They know so much more than we give them credit for. Talk to our children, pull them into just little powwows, connect them with older people, allow them to all learn from each other. It would be so magnificent. And I feel like we can make so much more headway when it comes to HIV, because HIV just isn't about having premarital sex or things like that. It's just so much deeper than that. And finally, let's look at advocacy and support. That's one of the greatest things that we can do as well, in addition to prevention methods when it comes to HIV. Look up some resources. If you just Google HIV resources, so many different things come up. But you also have to be careful with Google, because I always say Google will kill you. So be careful with Google. But a couple trusted resources that I know, cdc.gov, that's a very great resource. The Office of HIV Planning is also another great resource. AACO, that's AACO, that's the AIDS Activities Coordinating Office. So those are a few that are here, and they're reputable here in the city of Philadelphia. Well, cdc.gov is a government website, as well as Philadelphia Fight. Philadelphia Fight has a great program called Faithful Teach. Faithful Teach introduces the conversation of HIV in different faith communities. And one of the things I love, it's not just for Christians. It's bringing people of all faiths together to have these conversations when it comes to HIV. What can we all do as a people to decrease stigma, to eliminate transmission, to just get rid of all of that stuff, And then a couple of different things that we can all do as well, whether you're living with HIV or not. Get involved in different AIDS walks. They have them all over the nation. They have one here in Philadelphia that just passed in October. And again, they have them all over. So that's something else that you can Google as well. 2, normalize the conversation around HIV. Let's just talk about it. I love when I'm in rooms and the conversation of HIV comes up, or even if it doesn't come up, I'll interject something about HIV just to kind of throw it in there, see people's reaction, and then I can go on and educate them. So normalize the conversation around HIV. It's not a dirty topic. The first letter in HIV is H. Guess what that stands for? Human. Guess what we all have in common? Everybody here that's watching this video today, we are all human. So it affects us all in so many different ways. It impacts us all. So we all need to normalize the conversation. And finally, share this information. This information is not taboo. This video was not made just for you watching this video today. This video was made for you to pass along to someone else who did not get a chance to watch this video today. And lastly, I'm going to give my contact information because I want you to utilize me as a resource as well. So, I would love to connect with any of you in the future in any kind of way that you may need assistance. If I can just be a link to care, if I can encourage you to get back on your medication if you're living with HIV. If you're not living with HIV and you're just trying to figure out how to have this conversation with someone else, reach out to me. I would definitely appreciate it. I'm easily accessible on social media. You can find me on Facebook at Lynette, Lynnette, Trawick, Trawick, as well as on Instagram. Instagram, you can find me under my nonprofits page. That's I Am You. It's IAM, the letter U, .inc, INC. So it's I Am You Inc. So follow me, find me, contact me. I am so looking forward to talking to you at a later date. Thank you so much for having me speak to you all today. And I'm praying that you got something out of this that you did not know. And again, share something with somebody who was not able to make it today. You guys have a blessed day and enjoy service.